Hey everybody, welcome to day 2 of the Fashion Industry Conference. If you did not join us last night for day 1, that was our first ever Business of Fashion Roundtable, which included several fashion organizations, public officials, fashion schools, and the fashion community all under one roof to share our knowledge, our ideas, and what we're going to do in the future of fashion together. Today is day 2. It is a virtual workshops. We started at 11 a.m. with sustainable fashion. We will end tonight at 6 p.m. with the Black in Fashion conversation with Elliot Carlisle from the CFDA. And then we actually close the whole day, the whole conference, with a closing party in person, not virtual, at the Moxie. And today we are talking about marketing and Fashion Week with the fashion industry. And we have 3 amazing experts on with us today. And as I introduce them, I would love for them to introduce themselves to give us more information about them and their expertise. We'll first start with Amy Belwanzo. Hi, Amy.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Welcome to the group.
Thank you very much. So yeah, I'm Amy Belwanzo. I am the Vice President of Marketing and the Business Incubation and Innovation Center, or BIC, as we like to call it for ECDI. This industry is very fond of acronyms. So I previously was a co-founder and co-manager of Alternative Fashion Mob. So spent a lot of years, doing fashion events and interfacing with Tommy as we kind of collaborated on things as well. So have a big passion for fashion. I'm also a musician. I play in rock bands, and that's where my passion for fashion kind of comes in as a form of expression and kind of a form of art. So I always have a place in my heart for expression. So
thank you, Amy. We're so happy to have you. And it's nice to also reconnect with you. So and you're going to be a wealth of knowledge during this session. Next up, Maria Seguin.
Hi, everybody. As Tommy said, my name is Maria Seguin. I am currently working with strategy for Bath & Body Works. I have been in fashion retail, 13 years now. Time flies. So like Amy, I have a huge passion for fashion too. Excited about today's topic, but I've really worked in marketing, in so many different capacities for retail brands such as Abercrombie & Fitch, Victoria's Secret, La Senza, DSW, BBW, and Justice. Anywhere from strategy to media to external partnerships, brand building, you name it, I've probably touched it. So really excited for this conversation.
Thank you so much, Maria, for being on board today. And I'm sorry I did mispronounce your last name. I always say Seguin. I don't know why. Obviously it's Seguin. So, and last but not least, and someone who's been running behind the scenes, by the way, if you haven't seen her in front of the scenes yet, she's been running all of this and all of last night's Business of Fashion Roundtable, Aditi Bhatia.
Yes, hi, thank you for having me on the panel. My name is Aditi Bhatia. I am the owner of The Spice Age, which is a company that offers digital marketing, event management, and a lot more. I'm also the marketing director for the Columbus Fashion Council. I've been with the fashion family for about 6 or 8 years now. I can't even remember. And so I have a close connection to fashion and a passion for fashion. And I also sit on various other committees as marketing lead or marketing director in the nonprofits throughout our city. And I'm really happy to be here.
And you had a great presentation last night for Passport to Fashion, speaking about the platform to create diversity in fashion, which is really needed in the fashion world. I think Columbus kind of leads that way because we do reflect on our runways, whether it's through Passport to Fashion, during Fashion Week Columbus, or even during Alternative Fashion Mob, Amy. A lot of credit to you as well to bring that diversity onto the runway, which fashion impacts all of us. And so it should be this way. That's how it should be. But I believe Columbus actually is leading the way because we still need to push this message to the rest of the fashion world. I'm Thomas McClure. I am the founder and executive director of the Columbus Fashion Council. I founded Fashion Week Columbus back in 2010. Since then, we've been building this fashion ecosystem in Columbus and Central Ohio. If you didn't know, Columbus is number 3 in the nation for the number of fashion designers. That is who we serve, the fashion designers and the fashion community. And that is what the Fashion Industry Conference is all about. We are serving the fashion community. We are knowledge sharing. We are educating. And today's conversation is going to be a casual conversation with all the experts. And if you have questions, please pop your questions in the comments, and they will show up at the end of the discussion. But if you have comments that are really fun, put them up now. We want to see them on the screen. So let's start though. So let's start. Well, earlier actually, let me say this. We were discussing in the green room, the virtual green room, that we really want to start where the designers are at, right? And we also know a lot of the designers they're visionaries, they're creatives. They don't want to get bogged down with details of business, with marketing and whatnot. So what I really would like to do is start at that point, right? A designer has a collection, they're creating the collection, they're getting ready to showcase at Fashion Week, whether it's a regional Fashion Week or New York Fashion Week. I know those are two different beasts, by the way. So at this point, with a designer who we know is a creative, what are some minimal ways for the brand to set itself up with proper marketing at this point in the process? Amy, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah. So, I mentioned earlier that my love of passion kind of goes with that sort of self-expression, creativity. So the clothes that we wear are more so than so many things you communicate, whether it's your house or your car or whatever. It's on your body. It's really personal, So it's and it walks around with you all day. And you can, dress yourself according to your mood, whatever. It's just so personal. So with fashion in particular, knowing your target audience is the absolute place to start, right? I mean, it's a marketing basic, but it's so important. And it's kind of, you got to know where to meet your target audience. Just like we're saying, we want to meet our designers on where you're at right now. You have to know where your target audience is going to be. You have to know, how do you talk to them? How do they want to receive information? Where are you going to find them to get your messaging in front of them? So, and once you know your style, your brand. And I think as fashion designers, that's kind of, innate to when you show your designs, when you show your fashion, hopefully if you're a good one, it comes through loud and clear, right? So how you're presenting yourself. And I think the luck of being a fashion designer is that comes a little bit easier to fashion designers than some other industries. But knowing where to find your target audience so that you can connect with them, get what they want to see in front of them, that is the first thing. So it might be different for everybody on this call. But, most of us can use social media. Just being at an event, being at Fashion Week Columbus, you'll make a lot of connections. You'll meet a lot of audience there or a lot of collaborators, and, that being in person and finding out, where people are is a great way to kind of get in touch with your target market and with where you're going to be able to get your messaging in front of them.
Most definitely knowing your target audience is probably should have been started before they started the collection, maybe, right?
Absolutely.
So, but let's say, for instance, they already have their collection and they have kind of, some social media presence. How can they find their target audience? Are there tools that they can use through social media to kind of find, who's actually watching me, who's following me?
Yeah. So every social media platform kind of has their different analytics pieces. You can find which posts people are reacting to. You can really kind of dive in and find, whether your audience is male, female, what age. Every different platform has a lot of different analytical pieces, right? So look up what your platform is, look up what you can find there. You can also do, for pretty reasonable cost, you can do sponsored social, you can do paid marketing on most social platforms. And that also enables you to really kind of ratchet down your target, age, there's some income level, job, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Everything is a little bit different. So you can absolutely leverage your social platforms to sort of target your messaging. And then especially after you run ads, you can really dig into your analytic data. So yeah, you can absolutely find that. You also, interact with your people, right? The part of the thing about social media is it's not a place to be really polished. You want to kind of that's what your beautiful print ads are for, right? You want to really be your true self in social media. And so interacting with people and starting a conversation is a great way to do that. So, learn more about your target audience there too. You can put questions out. You can, help people engage with you and help people kind of react. whatever incentive you can give for people to react with you. That's always great practice, right?
That's great. No, that's great. Great advice. I do see sometimes brands don't interact with their audiences, and I just shake my head. I'm like, oh no, because that's a missed opportunity of bonding with your audience, right? And connecting them to your brand. Maria, what do you have to say? Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, giving personality, being real, right?
Yes.
Maria, would you have anything to add to that about target audience or anything extra for the minimal marketing that a brand could be doing?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I say, once you've kind of taken Amy's advice, you found your target audience, you found your niche, where your audience is consuming content, what kind of motivates them to engage, to purchase, etc. I think really kind of after you've really mastered who your audience is, I think the next huge thing for any small business or designer or fashion startup is telling your story. A lot of designers are creative people that have major inspiration or a really compelling story to tell. So utilizing the digital platforms, especially social media, to tell your story. And to be honest with you, even working with larger retailers, you see this whether you're a small retailer, a small business, a large retailer, a large business, that when you can build an emotional connection with your audience, that is what is literally going to set you up for success. Honestly, more than anything else, because people want to feel like they are a part of something. They want to feel like they are part of a family or part of a mission or part of a vision. So I think, once you kind of done the tactical work, it's really about telling your story. And I think the cool thing about social media is you can tell your story, but have fun with it, right? So if there is a fashion show coming up, have little tidbits of what inspired you about your collection that you're going to showcase, have little teasers, really get people excited for what they're about to see at the show, but then also set them up for that storytelling that they'll see on the runway. And then they can kind of also connect it to you, right? They've heard your inspiration on social. They kind of got tidbits of the story. They see the collection on the runway and they're like, cool, I can put this together. And it creates a more immersive and more of a powerful experience for the audience. So that would be my tidbit.
Most definitely.
If I can piggyback on what Maria was just saying, we work with a ton of entrepreneurs, and sometimes when you say storytelling, they will literally ask me like, well, how many words should you have in your story? Like, they want it to be a written story, but there's so many components to storytelling, right? Like, as Maria was saying, what's a piece of your inspiration? Or like, maybe you have, I don't know, a customer quote or a photo from your customer or something like that. Like, there are infinite ways to tell that story that don't necessarily just mean like a literal story, I guess. And social's the great platform for that, right? There are tons of great platforms, but social's like tailor-made.
I mean, social media is like a great free platform, by the way, even though we get mad about the algorithms and Instagram always changing stuff, but it's a free platform. And we didn't have this free platform, pre 2005, 2006, I think we had MySpace, and that was kind of like, I don't know what's going on there. So speaking of storytelling, I'm going to tell a quick story. The Columbus Fashion Council helped a brand open up down in the common thread, Shops on 3rd. And it was the first shop that opened. And what we did is we helped produce the whole event, from the VIP reception to the runway show in the next room. And then the last room was the unveiling of their shop, right? And so we had 100 guests. And after the fashion show, I told the designer that, we're going to bring you to the runway and we're going to tell your story. And that's exactly what we did. It was only 15 minutes to the runway, told his story. He ended up crying on stage, which is great because he's so emotional, because this is a big thing, a dream come true. The audience is crying, he's crying, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, cool, let's go do the unveiling now. And so we did the unveiling. He sold out of everything. He sold out of everything at the unveiling, and several people came up to me and said, listen, I am so glad that he told his story on stage, because I was honestly just going to leave after this and not buy anything. But once he told his story, I wanted to buy something. I don't care if it was one little small thing or several things. And so that mattered. That totally matters. That storytelling bonded that audience with that designer brand. So yes, so I thought that was just a case in point there. Aditi, what do you think happens after the storytelling?
I want to backtrack a little bit to the conversation that we were having, because I had this thing I had to say. So so many times all your efforts as a designer or as a small business can fall flat if people don't know how to find you online, or if you don't have an online presence. So I have a quote from many years ago that I've saved. It says, not having online marketing is like opening up a shop and not telling anybody about it. Right. And so having online marketing, yes, but how are people going to find you? So we know that social drives traffic to the website, and all these things are interconnected. And if you meet somebody at an event, or if you have a fashion show, or if you have a fabulous collection launch, if people can't go back home and find you, then all your efforts and all the connections that you're trying to make may fall flat. So the important thing is, social media is busy. Our feeds are busy. We have an attention span of 10 seconds. And so make your names and handles and profiles and all of that so obvious. And as Tommy likes to say, make the obvious obvious. And we live by that in our world. So make that connection easy for an individual who could be your potential customer. Make it easy for them to find you. So your Instagram handles, make them what your brand name is, right? Or make them what your name is, or whatever you want people to know you by. So it's a conscious effort to sit down and think of, okay, I have my personal page. I'm going to launch a commercial website for my collection or my business, that I'm going to have all the social media. I want it all to look the same. I want it to be consistent, but people, how are they going to find me? I think that's super important. So once you have that solidified, then all the effort that you're putting into telling your story and creating content and connecting with the audience, then it's all going to actually have the desired ROI that you wanted to have. Sorry, I derailed your question. Actually.
You did not. That's actually exactly what we're here for. We're here to have a conversation, and that was a really good point. I don't know how many times I try to find a brand and I can't, because it's some weird name that doesn't have, it's not related to the brand. And cool for being yourself, but you also have to think about your brand and how are you connecting with your audience. So that's very important, Aditi.
And then when you get to that website, there needs to be an obvious buy now button, right?
Yes.
That's the other thing. It's oh, I'm looking at these great garments, but it's what you want them to do. You have to make the obvious. What is it you want me to do once I'm on this website? Buy things? Great. Put a big button that's buy things. I cannot tell you how many of our entrepreneurs forget to have any kind of call to action on their website or wherever it is. All of it has to lead you down the path, right?
Right. And can we speak about websites for a second? So in the day of social media, sorry, we have different ways to sell, right? So Instagram now has Shop, Facebook, I think, has Shop, right? And then there's, of course, Shopify, which is a website that, a lot of brands might use. How important is it to actually have a website? Because I know websites have evolved, but now we have social media. So I've seen some brands just solely use Facebook or solely use Instagram. What do you think, Amy?
I was hoping you'd ask somebody else first. Things work differently for different brands, and it's kind of about we talked about finding your target audience where they are. You can use whatever platform to do a lot of the marketing, but I think it ultimately has to come back to your website, so you have some control over how you're logistically doing the selling. Your website might not have to be your main driving thing out there, but you got to have a storefront. You know what I mean? You got to have a way to pull it together, right?
Yeah. Essential place to lead it. I guess also there might be a liability if, in case your Facebook page gets shut down or your Instagram page gets shut down, if that was your main shopping site, then you always have your website, right? So that is a point. Okay, nice. Any other comments on websites?
Yes. I, in addition to, having a backup plan in case, something awful happens, which knock on wood, that doesn't happen to anybody watching this right now or anybody out there in the world ever. But I think also too, your website is your hub. Right. So it is the connector of all the things. It can lead that person to your social pages. It can lead them to purchase. It can lead them to your story about you, your inspo. It literally is the hub of all of your content and anything that you want, your consumer, your audience to read about, to know about, to find. It's just really should serve as the hub, if anything. Even if you don't have anything to sell, it should still serve as your hub.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the only thing I will add is that I was trying to buy something from Instagram, directly from Instagram, and I think it gives the seller only a little bit of space to put in like a return policy or something that might be useful, because they have to maintain their own look and feel and make everything look consistent. So it can be restrictive. Your website will give you the liberty to put whatever you want on there in terms of a return policy, or describe your product, or like Maria was saying, like tell your story, or an about us page, and all of that. So these are great tools, because once you click on something in Instagram shopping, it'll keep showing up. Hey, you have this in your cart. Do you want it? Do you want it? Do you want it? So it's great for that. But I think that having that in addition to having a website is key. And there's so many platforms, like Tommy was saying earlier, that make this easy for people that are not technically savvy in terms of creating an e-commerce platform. So there's Shopify. I know Squarespace has a very robust e-commerce side to things. And so there's a lot of resources out there.
It's a great point. It's a very good point. So far we have discussed find your target audience, or know your target audience. And social media is important, right? So, okay, let's stop at social media again. How many different platforms should a brand be on? Because there's so many now, right? And they're all different, and they all take a lot of work. And you can't just sometimes share like on Hootsuite, like to all three, because the messaging has to be different, right? So Maria, what do you think about how many platforms a designer should have?
Well, I'm going to assume that we're on the basis of, you're starting, you're new, you're fresh. You're like, what do I do now? Where should I focus the limited resources and time and energy that I currently have? And I will say, start with the platforms that you are strongest in and that you're the most comfortable in. So if you're a great video content creator, go on TikTok, do reels, and focus on that. If you're not a great video, content creator, start on Facebook. Do what you're comfortable with first. Get your feet wet, get your content strategy, see what the audience is responding to, and then you can potentially expand down the road. But I would say don't let, social media platforms intimidate you. If you're not comfortable, use a platform that you are comfortable in and that you're going to succeed in first, and then kind of grow from there.
That's a good point. It's very, very overwhelming, even just as my personal pages. I can't keep up with TikTok. I just can't do all that. I post like once a week, but it works against me because algorithms are like, oh, you post once a week, we're never going to share this. You're supposed to post like 5 times a day. I'm like, that's never going to happen.
It was like one platform too many.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Any other words on social media platforms and for designers and brands?
I bring us back again too to knowing where your audience is. Like everybody knows, Facebook maybe tends a little older. Like if that's your audience, like grab that and go with it. If you're looking for the younger, hipper audience with TikTok, I think you can absolutely kind of find where your people are, and you can just a simple Google search can tell you who looks at what kind of platform. We do a lot of that. When you do then start expanding to other platforms, like I'll use the example, a lot of our clients are on Facebook, but a lot of our partners and the like community folks and civic folks that we want to be in front of are on Twitter, so you can kind of, if you do have different target audiences, or if your target audience is, splintered in any way, you can start expanding that way as well. But yeah, it always comes back to knowing where to put the message in front of the people you want to see it, right?
That is exactly right. Aditi, anything?
A lot, but I'm going to try to stay on track. I know that as a social media manager, as a small business owner, as wearing all these hats, it is definitely overwhelming. And you're like, oh my gosh, now it's saying we need to do, 5 to 6 stories a day, or we need to do this, or we need to do that. There's 2 parts to social media. One is building your page, and the other one is putting content on every day, right? So if somebody is coming to your page, and I do this is analysis paralysis for my own brands, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do next. They want this, they want that. And in the meantime, I'm not building my page. I'm not good with being on camera. I hate doing videos. You might never see me in a reel or a TikTok, but that's holding me back from creating content that I can put on my pages. So I'm neither doing this nor doing that. So the algorithm is one thing. Like, yes, it's going to show you, if you have videos, you're going to appear more in people's feeds or whatnot. But don't let that stop you from just building your page. Because when I'm trying to research a new brand or a new company, I'm going to their page and looking at all of their posts and saying, okay, what do they make? What do they have to offer? What's their vibe? And if you don't have that, because now you're stuck in a position like me where I'm not good at video, I can't do this and I cannot do that, and now you have nothing. So that noise is good. It's good for general knowledge. It's good to like tell you how to do your strategy maybe, but don't let that be the 100% of how you're going to do things.
Right. That's a really good point. And I was talking with another designer down at Common Thread Shops on 3rd, and I point that way because that's that way. Actually that way. Downtown that way. So and she doesn't update her social media very often, and I'm like, listen, you're in here, you're actually sewing your dresses in your shop every day. All you have to do is take a photo of like the fabric you're using, or just take a quick video of whatever. You don't even have to be in it. You just need to post, because that's how you're talking to your audience. So I think that's a great point, Aditi. Some of the designers might have analysis paralysis, or just can't get past that little whatever that block is. So that's a really good point. Okay, so we talked about target audience, social media, website, right? Those are 3 key points. I think that's really good. That's a good place for designers to start. Let's move into, now the designer has finished the collection. They are ready for the runway. Amy, you know this feeling all too well with all the designers you've worked with over the past. And we know the designers are very caught up, of course, in backstage with the models, with the fittings, with the last minute sewing, with the makeup, with the hair, everything has to go perfect. But a lot of them forget about the process of marketing during the moment, right? During that moment, and also during the runway moment. Amy, I'll start with you again. What can a designer be doing during this specific process, right before the show and during the show?
Oh, geez. I mean, you're obviously around a ton of people you can connect with, right? This is your key moment of the year to be networking. And that is a huge part of marketing, is who do you know, who might be your buyers, all of that. We talked about the storytelling and thinking about how you can use your runway show for your storytelling. You have your vibe that you're trying to show. A lot of people will use video or whatever. So many ways to complement the story of the fashion that's on your runway. And a lot of people will just kind of present in their own words, and that's not everybody's vibe, but that's right. I don't think people should shy away from that. And a lot of creative folks might not be like the ones who want to be necessarily like the speaker all the time. But, there comes a time when you got to put yourself out there for your brand, right? So I would encourage our designers not to shy away from just kind of, being their true self. If you do make it part of your runway show. Those are a couple of points. I'm sure I'd love to hand off. We could probably talk ideas on this for a long time.
3 or 4 more hours.
Yeah.
I'm going to add to that, Amy, because we both have a lot of experience with producing fashion shows. I see all too often that designers also will not even walk to the end of the runway to get their photo taken, right? And I'm like, please walk to the end of the runway, because this is your marketing piece. This is going to help you. This connects you with your audience. They just come out waving and go away. That's cute and all, and you might be shy. I get it, but you really got to connect with your audience. And the other part is, I know for both Alternative Fashion Week and Fashion Week Columbus, what we did really well was before each show, we would have interview videos of the designer talking about their brand, right? And automatically that's connecting their face, their story with the audience. So I would highly recommend that for whoever's producing fashion shows. That I think that's a key piece. And
it lets you tell that story in a little more controlled way.
Yes.
Than on the heat of the moment on the runway when, people are nervous, and I get it. But yeah, that's a wonderful point. And it also lets you use other visual aspects to like enhance, there could be music, there could be different focuses, and
setting the mood. Good. Yeah. Maria, how about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, coming from like a designer's perspective, a fashion show is crazy and chaotic, right? And they really want to focus on having a successful show. So their focus and their bandwidth may not allocate them to capture a lot of content. So I would highly recommend appointing another person to be in charge of capturing content. So that relieves that off of you and you can focus on the show. Right. And then I also think too, for overly prepared people like myself, if you want to go the extra mile, you hire or get a volunteer to capture the content, but then you also come up with a shot list prior to the day of the show. So you say, hey, I know you're going to be capturing video, photo, etc. Here are the 6 things that I would love to get captured from this show because I want to use this in my social media reels or my TikTok or, my next campaign, or I want to continue the momentum from the show. So having a shot list for that person to know what to look for and know what to capture can also help too.
I love that piece of advice so much. Anyone else, you guys make friends with the photographers.
that is so important. You'll get those photos before the organization does.
Exactly. And you might get a little just extra attention on your photos.
But that's when Aditi gets mad. She's like, oh my God, they're sharing the photos before we are. But it's good though. It's so good. That is a good point, Maria. I have seen all too often where designers solely depend on, like, say, the organization, like Fashion Week Columbus or the Columbus Fashion Council, to do it all for them, right? And we have our own idea of, we're looking at the overall picture, all the designers. So we're gonna be very uniform with everything we do because we want to offer all the same, benefits, right? And designers forget that they need to have their own person. They need to capture their own content. With their stuff going on the runway, they can post that stuff immediately. Meanwhile, our team is like, cool, we're going to post it tomorrow or the next day because we have to do it all at once in a batch. But that behind the scenes too, I think that's so important because it's part of the story. It's part of the lead up, So I think designers, like you said, Maria, if they can't do it themselves, get somebody to do it for you.
That's so good. So good.
What do you think, Aditi, with Passport to Fashion? You have a lot of experience with this too.
Yes, and I've been like dying to add things, and I'm sitting here going like making my own checklist. No, so I want to go back to what Maria was saying earlier. We know fashion weeks and the actual fashion show time is crazy, but with Passport to Fashion or with Fashion Week Columbus, when you sign up to become a designer or when you get accepted and you pick your package and stuff, there are benefits, there are marketing benefits that are built into the package. And while it may get crazy as you're designing and as you're doing your fittings and stuff, I would say, take a moment to look at those because we behind the scenes work really hard to put that stuff together. And we noticed that, sometimes they don't get taken advantage of, some of the benefits that we're offering. And those are almost perennial. They are not necessarily linked to just the show day or, the show week or anything like that. So we can start marketing you the right way before the show, keep doing that after the show. So pay some attention to your bio that you're providing to us, to the photos that you're providing to us, or to the benefits that you're seeing in the package, and then come and have a conversation with the organization and say, hey, what does this mean? How do I do this better? What do you need from me? Usually it's the other way where we're tracking them down to get information that we need for our marketing. And so those packages are there, before things get crazy, to take a good look at what is there and empower your organization and their social media team or their marketing team to show you in your best light. So it's a collaborative effort.
Yeah, I've seen, Aditi, you and I have seen this because I know through Fashion Week Columbus, we have forms that the designer application, and it's an online form. And, there are specific fields that say, what is your bio? And we have to put in parentheses, this may be public. So get it right, spell everything right, spell the names right, and make sure this is your story. That's part of the package that we do send out, including the headshot too, so it's all very much important stuff. We try guiding them as much as we can. I do want to mention this. I meant to mention it earlier, but Fashion Week and fashion shows are more than just a show. It's more than just a theater of art. It is a true marketing piece that is needed by the designers, by the brands, right? So of course, in the audience, it looks pretty, it looks luxurious. It looks like, oh, cool, look at these beautiful models with these beautiful clothes on. But this is actually a small business that is launching the brand or the collection on that runway. And they take these assets away from the runway, such as photos, videos, connections with buyers and media, audience, brand building, brand connection, brand awareness. They're taking that from the runway, and then they have to move forward So if we're done with talking about the process of during Fashion Week and right before the show, can we move into what's beyond the runway? Cool. So what is beyond the runway? So this too often we've seen, all of us have seen this, where a designer's like, cool, what do I do now? And, and sometimes it's been blamed on the organization. I'm going to be real, by a couple of designers like, oh, you didn't do enough for me. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, we did all this. Like, you're supposed to take all this stuff and move forward with it, So, with that in mind, with some fashion designers, not all, but a few have said that. What's beyond the runway with marketing? What's next? Amy, go for it.
Well, we've all the stuff you do before the show that we've just spent all this time talking about, like it doesn't stop, that's for sure. And I know that when you're done with this collection, it's like birthing a baby, but like sometimes even harder. And you just need to go like be in a dark room for days or whatever. Like, I know that's how some people will feel, and I totally get it. But you can't stop. Like, now is the time to keep the foot on the gas, and like maybe now think about that while you're already amped up before you hit that, like, I got to go sit in a dark room. Like, set yourself up, like prepare now. Some of those behind the scenes photos that we were talking about, like that's such great content. You can kind of like, leak out, on a schedule after the show, and just, you saw the beautiful show. Now here was what was behind it. Here was some of the lead up. So you can kind of like, plan now, plan ahead to sort of be prepared to keep the pedal to the metal, so they say. And it's like, I can use all the stupid phrases like strike while the iron's hot. Like, people have just seen this beautiful show. So, that some people will be interested in buying right away, right? So like, how can you find those people? How can you follow up with those people? How can you make sure that there is something there for them to react to buy, to order, etc. So that's also goes back to making sure your website or, your digital media are sort of set up. Maybe if that you are going to sell out of your runway samples right away and you haven't had time to do a production line or something like that, maybe you want to set yourself up for some pre-orders, like put that button on your website, or just think ahead of how you can sort of set yourself up to like, carry that splash forward at the end of the show.
That's great. Great advice. Maria.
That was hard to follow because I feel like Amy hit so many points. Yeah. But I will have to say, to Amy's point, this is really a time for them to sustain and maintain that excitement, keep the momentum going. And I also think, too, to utilize the show or the event for credibility, right? So this is a big show. It's a big part of the community. And so use that as credibility, create a As Seen On campaign, As Seen On Fashion Week Columbus 2022. Yes. And like shop the collection and like make it fun and utilize that content from the event to then become shoppable and kind of feed off of that continuous, momentum and excitement. But I think the key really is to kind of keep it going, right? Everyone's excited at the show. Like, don't let it die there. Like, keep it going.
I believe in that. It's an energy exchange, right? Between you and the audience. And you have to keep that energy exchange going post show, whether it's, posting your social media, reaching out to your client list, and exactly what you're saying, Maria, like, As Seen at Fashion Week Columbus, use that platform. Aditi, what do you think?
No, I think it's been said already, but plan for this 3 to 4 months before the fashion show. Like, again, make yourself easy to find. I think that's number one. I cannot tell you how hard it is to go find people to tag when we're doing all the social media. And if it's too difficult, people aren't going to find you, right? So plan on, having your e-commerce, if you have that capability, having that set up. I know with Passport to Fashion and with Fashion Week Columbus, we've talked about doing Shop the Runway many times, and we've offered a virtual option. I forget what year it was, but Fashion Week has had the marketplace right after the finale runway show. So prepare for these opportunities because they're being offered. We just have to put your best foot forward.
It's a really good point. We can only help the designers so far, and the rest has to be up to them, right? I do want to also add, I think it's very important whenever the designers share their photos and videos from that show or from whatever show they're doing, they need to tag the photographer, tag the videographer, tag the model, tag those who help them, tag as many people as you can, because guess what? Those people are sharing it to their social media pages.
Right.
That is the power of social media. And matter of fact, that's the power and influence that we have at Fashion Week Columbus and the Columbus Fashion Council. I brag about this all the time because we're so connected to everyone in the fashion community. As soon as we share one photo and we're tagging, it's going out to 20 different social media platforms, or pages. So I think that's super important. Anything else regarding this? I think this is all really good. This is some minimal marketing tactics that the designers can utilize. Anything else before we go into questions?
I have one thing to add.
Yes.
Kind of piggybacking off of what you're saying, Tommy, too. If you're a designer and say, gosh, I'm just using this example, but if Mayor Ginther was like, I love that space cowboy suit that was on the runway, that's really creative. Get that model out there with that outfit, snap a photo, tag him, and be like, Mayor Ginther's favorite outfit of the night. It's just
that's awesome.
building that creativity, kind of just building that credibility, just utilizing, to your point, the photographer, the models, giving them credit. But if there's anyone else or anything else that you can do to just really kind of scale your awareness and then kind of raise that credibility, take advantage of it, because that's the time, right?
That's 100% right. I love that. That's great. And all of this is in the efforts of helping our designers, helping our creative community, our fashion community, because we understand, I think we're all creatives here. We understand where they're at. We understand that it could be daunting to handle your social media pages, to create a website, to think about all these things, but it will help your business. And that's the point, right?
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Along those lines, you don't have to do everything yourself too. And I know, for creatives, it's hard to relinquish some of that control, and sometimes maybe it's just fun and you want to do it, but I encourage everybody to just repeat after me. It's okay if I don't do everything. There definitely comes a point. Yeah, somebody commented delegation is great. Building excitement with your friends, your family, whatever. There's help out there. So if you don't feel like you can do it all, you don't have to. It's okay.
Exactly right.
Definitely get help.
Just start somewhere, right?
And to add on that as well, if you're completely lost or you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know, the demographics of these platforms. I don't know the best practices, or I don't even know the first thing about starting on TikTok or Pinterest or Facebook, Instagram, whatever it might be. There are a lot of free courses out there. So Udemy, Coursera, a lot of free resources and tools out there. Take an hour of your time and just learn about it yourself.
Yeah.
And also too, that way, to Amy's point, even if you do have help, you at least have the fundamental understandings of what those platforms can do and how they can help your business. So I think just even taking a little bit of time to learn about them through a free course or workshop or something could be helpful.
Or YouTube. I mean, I literally go to YouTube. If I don't know something, I'm on YouTube.
Right, exactly.
And then I become an expert.
Right. Or at least you met one kind of video.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Great. Aditi, anything else before we go to questions?
Yes, I will say that again, all these efforts that small businesses and designers will make, the key strategy there, the goal of that should be to show your brand in the best light. And this is something I've learned from Tommy in the years that I've done work with the Fashion Council and Fashion Week Columbus. Taking a photo and posting that photo, pay 2 seconds of attention to what that looks like. What's the lighting like? Is there stuff that can be cropped out? What is the energy of the person or the model that's in the photo? What is the vibe? So many times we'll be looking at feeds and saying, I wish this was a better picture. This has so much potential, but I wish it wasn't so dark or so gray, or, I wish they'd cropped out this person's head or whatever it is. And again, there's so many courses on how to use your iPhone to take good pictures, or how to take, edit photos or whatnot. And so just knowing the basics, it's hard. And I live this life, so I know how hard it is to learn a little bit of something and a little bit of something else, and then try to put it all into practice. But it's those key things that if your feed looks good, people are going to say, okay, you know what, then the collection is going to reflect what the vibe that the feed has. I know it's a little bit of a long shot, but that's how it works for me. If I don't like a social media page, I'm like, and right, wrong, or indifferent, I don't know, but that's just it's a connection that people make instantly. So take the time to show your brand in its best light, and if that takes a little bit of effort, then find the resources to put that effort in.
It's a great point. Yes, thank you. Thank all three of you. Let's get into a couple of the questions that came through. Lubna Najjar, hello Lubna, who just hosted the last session. Thank you. You did a great job. Maria, what's your advice for a brand ready to launch a rebrand and looking to use traditional marketing to communicate with customers? What's the recommendation as far as email marketing, in-store signage, etc.?
Yes. Ooh, a good rebrand. I love it. I think, if you're really kind of ready to pivot, whether it's from a strategic perspective or an aesthetic perspective or complete rebrand, I think that, one, going back to what Amy is saying, if you're going to rebrand, you have to understand how that's going to impact your current customer base and really understand, like, if I'm going to change my whole entire brand and I'm going to have to now pivot my social strategy, my email strategy, my in-store sign strategy, my omni-channel strategy, right, across all touch points, is that going to positively or negatively impact my customer base? And is that, if the reason for the rebrand is to acquire new customers, which channels are going to most impact you acquiring that new to file or that new customer? So I think it's doing your due diligence, as Amy's kind of said multiple times, understanding the audience, understanding the impact, and doing the research just to make sure that what you're doing, the efforts that you're putting in, are going to give you the most bang for your buck and make the most impact. And then I think also too, once you're doing a rebrand, it's really important to test, because if you're changing everything overnight, that could be good, but it could also be really bad, right? So I would say make small changes, do some A/B testing, especially from an email perspective, a site perspective. A/B testing, and even social, A/B testing is great because you're not putting all of your dollars and all of your resources into just changing something, crossing your fingers and hoping it works. You're testing it small little bits at a time and seeing progressively if it's working. And if it is, keep on going. If it's not, scale back. What do I need to change? Or maybe this was the wrong pivot. So I think that's really important to kind of, just really look at and evaluate as you're going through a rebrand.
That's a great answer. Does anybody else have a response to this as well?
I support what you say. Just to add that when you're testing, like, sometimes it's not necessarily even intuitive. Like, when you're A/B testing, you only want to change one little element. And sometimes it's surprising. I'll be like, oh, we'll test it, but that'll never work. And that's the winner, like, it's worth the testing because your instincts often are right, but then sometimes they're not. So it's worth the testing.
It's a great point. Great point. Thank you, Lubna, for that question. I think she might even have another question. Oh, that's for me. Thanks, Lubna, for being active on our session. Thomas, what's the biggest takeaway from a brand doing a marketing show looking to advertise in magazines and traditional marketing? Best practices to spend money in print or digital or both? So something I do encourage designers to do is reach out to the magazine and see how they can become part of the editorial shoots that are happening in that magazine. That, to me, is the easiest way to advertise for free, because most of the magazines will have some kind of fashion editorial, right? And like Columbus Monthly is what we have here. And then we did have Buckeye Lifestyle. We still have City Scene, and I'm missing a few. What other magazines do we have here?
The 614.
614 magazine, duh. Yes. But all of them have some kind of fashion editorial page. Either it's a 2-page spread or a 4-page spread. I would highly recommend a designer reach out and say, hey, I will loan you these clothes, these fashions, so you can create your editorial, because they need you too. That's free advertising. I think digital is the way to go, honestly. I mean, social media is free. And I know these designers do not have a lot of money for the most part. They are, they're doing this on a shoestring budget. They're doing it with the services that like the Columbus Fashion Council offer, with as much help as possible to get these brands going. So I just say, plan it for social media if you can. Now, if you do get a partnership with someone else, like say on social media, maybe you can do a partnership with your models. You have models that love you, that they love to wear your clothes. You can collaborate with them and they will share stuff out as well. So that's kind of my my advice with that. If you have a lot of money, then damn it, spend it. Then take out a 2-page ad, take out the centerfold, whatever. But for the most part, I just know the designers we work with are all, they're trying to make money. They're trying to make a living doing what they love.
Mm-hmm. It is pricey. Like it's easy to underestimate how expensive it's going to be. And like one ad in one publication, like, please, nobody ever put your entire marketing budget. Like, if I could just get this one ad in this one publication, like paid advertising does not work that way. Yeah. How many times do you yourself even think about have to see a message before it really like sinks in? So it's like if you get one shot in one magazine that one time, like if don't spend your entire budget that way. It's got to be, you've got to have a repeated cadence that you're out there, and there's a lot more effective ways to do that.
It's a really good.
Tommy said, I mean, if you got the money,
I mean, exactly. You have to
make sure
advertise
you
everywhere.
have monthly ads in all the publications, like repeated, like consistency is key. That way, get that consistent drumbeat out there if you got the money to do it.
I mean, that's a really. Go ahead, Maria. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, and I will have to say too, a lot of times when you work with publishers or, magazine editors, they will give you a circ number, so a circulation number. Do not believe that number. If they quote 2 million people, you can bank maybe 2% of that 2 million actually seeing your ad. So just be realistic and don't fall into those traps. I think, Tommy and Amy, I think we're talking about earlier too, with paid media on social, if you are going to invest dollars, you can actually get an accurate number on how many eyeballs or impressions you're going to see. It'll actually tell you. Facebook will actually give you a range, so you can get an idea of what your dollars will get you. And you can also target, right? With the magazine, it's like, it's a little iffy. So I think it should be more of a supplemental to a digital, and to Tommy's point, digital first, 100%.
Yeah. I think too, like our society has been desensitized to all these ads that we are like, thrown at us, whether it's a commercial or an ad in a magazine. And also to Amy's point, that magazine's a one-time flip. I'm going through this and that's it. I'm probably not going to revisit that magazine again. And if I see your ad, you're lucky. So these are really good points. Aditi, anything to add to that?
I have a little bit of a different track to this. My thought is to say, if you have the money to spend on something, make it in-person events, in-person opportunities, like a vendor, vendor pop-up or presence at an event where the ticket is a little bit more than what you'd like to pay for, but the return on investment and being there is going to be was going to make a difference. Pay that money. Any chance you get to showcase your product and physically connect with the audience, I think that is where the money should go. Like social media and online stuff can be free for the most part, but actual physical connection, especially after COVID, I think people are still craving that. And it's when we do events, we see this all the time. Like the energy that events have brought in 2022 and onward has been different from what we used to see in 2018, 2019, 2017, because people have craved that connection. So there's a ton of events that offer opportunities to either sell your designs or connect with people or attend workshops in person, or that are like our roundtable was yesterday, and make those in-person connections. I think that's where some of your marketing budget should end up going to.
That's an amazing point. Yep. Experiential marketing, right? So this wraps up our session. Thank you all for joining us. Maria, Amy, Aditi, thank you so much. This was a great conversation, and this will be put on our YouTube channel later. So for the audience members, if you want to replay this, or if you panel members want to send it out, please do so. Thank you again so much. Everyone, get ready for the next session. And don't forget, tonight at the Moxie, which everyone's invited, it's in person, is the closing party from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. with Elliot Carlisle from the CFDA, the Council of Fashion Designers of America. He is here in Columbus. So anyhow, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. Thank you all.